Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning to you. We have jumped over to the YouTube segment right here in the Optimal U on HGG Radio, and we are planning. No, let me not say we're planning. We're going to have a very healthy discussion today with somebody that I've met about a year ago, I think, or so. And let me tell you something. I'm looking forward to this discussion. We've been having some good discussions, and I'm looking forward to this one also. So, without any further ado, I'm going to invite my guest on stage, and she is going to. The first thing that she's gonna do. Hold on, my phone wants to behave as if it wants to disturb me. Hmm. So the first thing I want her to do as soon as she jumps on is to introduce herself to you, to tell you who she is. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, Renee. Thank you. Thank you so much for the privilege to have me here live with you today. My name is Elizabeth. I am a health and wellness coach. I'm here in the Bahamas at the moment. I am a RMT, so that is a registered massage therapist as well. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm a podcaster, YouTuber.
Hmm.
So
Do you have any children? Are you married?
I am not married as yet. I have one daughter, a 22-year-old. Um,
All right. And
Nice.
do you do an online business too with what you do? Is it
Yes.
online? People can
So
access it.
I coach women to wellness. So I'm focused on women that are dealing with things like this, family issues, and maybe struggling with loss, that may
Yeah.
be struggling with their identity. So
I see.
I help them get to their goals, whatever that may be, if it is in fitness, if it's spiritual, or if it's even mental health.
Okay, thank you so much. So, guys, let me put out there. She's a Christian, so just get that correct because that's what we're about here. That's what we're about here. No,
Yes.
Christmas, my favorite time of the year. I am telling you all that. You know this by this. It's my favorite time of the year. But I also understand that while it's my favorite time of the year, there are individuals who struggle at
Yes.
this time of the year. It may be a new struggle, or it may be something that every year this is what they have to deal with. And so we're not going to skirt around it. It's a reality. And so
Mhm.
persons are struggling with grief, loss, and just the challenges of the season. And so we want to talk about that today. And so I'm going to jump right into the question. I'm going to just jump right into it. And I want to ask the question, Elizabeth,
Yes.
how can individuals cope with feelings of grief, loss during the Christmas season, and especially if it is very recent and it's a
Yes.
loved
Well,
one?
I can definitely identify. I lost my sister a couple of months ago, so when I saw the questions, I was like, Lord, I don't know what you're saying to me, but um, I know that grief is intense sorrow, and we're in the Caribbean. I'm sure that, especially in my community, I'm realizing that we don't pay attention to mental health, first of all.
Mm,
And even when people are grieving, sometimes we're not patient and graceful with them during the time of their loss.
yeah.
So I heard you say earlier, like, you tried to tell people, oh, it's time to move on, and, come on, cheer up. Sometimes you can't cheer up. Sometimes it just feels so intense that you're unable to do that. And so in some ways that I know that I help others and help myself through grief is reading the word. And it sounds cliche, but reading the word, but one of the people that we can be reminded of is David. All throughout Psalms, you see David cry out. He's crying out. No matter what mistakes he made, no matter what's going on, he lost a child, he, slept around, but he still cried out to God. He still went to the Lord, and the Lord is our strength. And so we know that during grief, during times of sorrow, it causes our spiritual man to be depleted and to feel empty. So, in order to continuously strengthen and renew our strength, we have to remain in the Word And when we can't plug ourselves into the word, we need somebody that's going to pour into us. Hence, having mentors, pastor, people
Yeah.
that we're connecting to, and you need to put systems in place. So
Mm-hmm.
initially, when you have a loss, sometimes you just want to stay in bed.
Yeah.
But some of the systems to put in place is to ensure that you have responsible people, people that understand mental health, because you can go really, really low when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to grief. Having people that are going to reach out to you, and not only reach out to you, but pour into you, pouring the word into you, pouring love into you so that you can continue to come out of that grief.
That's a lot. That's a lot because yeah, it's a lot because the truth of the matter is very often, as I said, we don't take time to
No,
look at the fact that persons we think grief you just get over, just move on. It's hurting and you just move on. But while we say you reach out to your pastor, reach out to different persons and get persons in your space to help you
mhm.
to deal with this, how can our faith how can our faith help us to navigate these emotional struggles in this time? How can our
Yeah,
faith help us?
and that's it right there. Like if you don't have faith in God, faith in yourself, faith in believing that you can overcome, you can get stuck in a place of depression and grief. And how can we do that? Like you said, depending on the word. Some of the things the systems that I've also put in place, in addition to people pouring into us, is music.
Mm,
Music continuously revives any of us. If you put music in a room with somebody that's in a coma, you can tell their vital signs change. And it shows how important what we are listening to is for us, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally.
mm-hmm,
I have playlists for fasting. I have playlists for the feelings that we're talking about now, grief, uh,
yeah.
depression, disappointment, and I call it hype music. So even in the morning, I play the hype music, especially when I have to work out, to get me out of that place of rest, of slumber, of tiredness, of weakness, whatever it may be, to pull you out of it. And so creating a playlist, sometimes even before things happen, is the systems that we can put in place. We're not expecting that tomorrow that we want a family member to die,
No.
but but we're creating music and systems in the event that we get disappointed. Because disappointment is also a loss and a process of grief.
That's not something that we think about because we don't look at disappointment as something that will cause us to grieve. And it's recently that somebody brought that to my attention. That did you know that if you are greatly disappointed, you grieve? I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I said,
yeah.
what do you mean? And they said, yeah, you grieve. You do.
You go through the same steps, you go through the same processes of anger, bitterness. So all of these feelings, emotions, which
Mm,
God gave us, it's not that we're not supposed to have these feelings. We can go through these feelings, but we're not to stay in that moment and stay in those feelings. So you can cry. Jesus wept. Jesus lost a friend and he wept. So we are to go through our emotions. When Moses died, the Israelites had a time of mourning. God said, "This is the amount of time that you have to mourn."
mm-hmm.
And then the Lord said, "Come on now, time to move on. You got to keep going." So the point is not to stay in that place. And then we're talking about faith. So the faith is the thing that you're hoping for, the thing that you are expecting. That's why we're talking about mentorship and coaching.
Yeah.
Having a goal. What is the goal? Because you can't stay in the position of the loss.
Right.
There's a goal that you still have. There's a point that you still need to be looking toward.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is how.
So it's
Mhm.
important to keep the Bible reading, keep your worship going, keep your different songs for your different moods, if you want to call it that. So you have to keep those things going. But so in your case, you lost your
Mhm.
sister. My
Yes.
condolences to you.
Thank you.
Um, how how can persons, and you can speak from a place of not just mere head knowledge, no, you can speak from your personal experience. How can persons honor the memory of their loved ones during this Christmas period in a way that supports their healing as well?
I think that that comes with boundaries, and knowing yourself. Uh, I, I think for the most part, you know how far to go when it comes to your thoughts on this person or the people that you're grieving or you've lost.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that you shouldn't go too far into this, whatever it may be. But for me, I'm thinking about the things to be grateful for and the things to be thankful for, and the
Mm-hmm.
things that brought joy. So for me, one of the things that we're as a family putting in place because of the loss of my sister is she was always the light in the room, always bringing a joke. So anytime we're around, and even now, we remember her and talk about the things that she would have done and the things
Mm-hmm.
that would bring joy.
Ah,
Um, and like I said, it's not staying in that, like going too far
right.
into the to make you feel empty or depleted, but to make you feel joyful. So when we talk about it, even if we have a tear in our eye, it's still that
You're cracking up.
joy.
Yeah. So you might crack up. You might, remember when you said this? Oh, this girl was crazy and stuff like that. So you lift yourself
Yes,
thinking positively, her positive attitude, and so you use that in a moment. If you think about her, you just think about the pleasantries.
exactly,
Mm, mm,
exactly.
mm. But the what do they call it now? Seasonal affective disorder. So when people during these seasons they come into the blues. Now I was in Canada for about 2 years,
Right.
and this is something that I don't look. I never. It's not something I liked. The matter of the winter, because it automatically brings a gloom. It
Yes,
brings a gloom,
it's dark.
even though you're singing and laughing and the pepper lights and all the pretty things.
Yeah,
It brings this gloom, and that's one of the things I don't miss about not being in Canada. The
right.
gloom of
Me too.
Christmas, right? I don't miss that. Winter is not. Mm-mm. So persons who may live alone, and
Hmm.
not just Canada now, in the case of the US or wherever in the world you live, that you have
Yeah,
winter as in the snow and all that darkness, there are persons who struggle at this time of the year, right?
yeah.
How can they deal with this? What are some strategies that they can put in place to handle they call it sad? What a term.
That's a very, very good question, because living in Edmonton, I didn't have quote unquote family or blood relatives, and I would have been deemed, the single person and the person living alone, because during the Christmas my daughter would come to visit her dad, but what I learned to do was to reach out to others and not wait for people to come and look for me.
Mm.
I knew that, and that's the systems that I'm talking about, like being proactive and not reactive.
Right.
We know every year winter comes. This is, and if we look at this spiritually, we could almost say that there's a system that has been created by God, and then the enemy uses this same season that's supposed to bring joy to bring sadness,
Yeah.
right? And so if we know that the enemy is going to strategically cause you to be depleted and unhappy, then you need to proactively look for things, people, and communities that will bring you joy, and not expect or wait for this thing or the people to come around or the neighbor to come and visit, or whatever it may be, that the thought
Mhm.
process may come. And sometimes we need to reject the demonic thoughts, those thoughts that nobody cares, because that's what happens, right? That causes that seasonal depression, not just the darkness, the gloominess of the atmosphere, it's also the gloominess of the your spiritual man. It
Mm,
depletes you. And so creating systems that reaching out to others instead of waiting, um, even if you have to put reminders in your phone, because sometimes we get so busy, putting reminders in your phone to reach out to Renae just to see how she's doing. And then so you can have a conversation with somebody so that you can connect with somebody so that you can be loved on. And I think that that seasonal condition is just a way of saying that you're not being loved.
mm, because it gives that feeling of loneliness.
Correct.
It gives that feeling of abandonment. And even though it may not be the reality, that's the feeling it gives. I remember I
Yeah.
had an experience, I had an experience. I want to share that experience with you. So it was winter. And
Mhm.
I said, it was, I think it was Chelsea's birthday. And so my said, I said, okay, I'm just going to hang out at the mall and you guys just go spend the day, If you want to go home, the children are at school, hey, take the day. I'm going to be absent. And I went to the mall.
Mhm.
Can I tell you? I was bawling my eyes out at the mall. And I was like,
Wow.
what? What am I crying about? The mall
Yeah.
felt, there were people all over, but all of a sudden, I'm telling you about this gloom in this place. All of a sudden, I felt sad. I felt alone. I'm starting to notice everybody passing with somebody. This, and I'm like, what the heavens declare? And then the Lord just sent a lady and she said, oh, this, she's a senior. So she says, oh, this walking is going to kill me. And she started to give me some jokes and I was cracking up. I laughed until I was so, she really made me laugh. And I said, God, thank you. Because
Yeah.
out of nowhere, that spirit came and decided to sit on me for no reason. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, I felt, when I said I felt sad, I mean sad, all sort of thoughts. Listen, I went on the mall quite chirpy, walking and having my
Exactly.
good time. But as I said, the place has a thing going on in the
It's
winter.
a spirit.
Yeah, give me the right name. It's a spirit. And
It's a,
let me tell you, it latched onto me in that mall. And it was the biggest mall in Edmonton, so it's a huge mall. You know
yes,
that
it
mall.
is.
So that mall is not very
And
small.
it's usually on a regular extremely full.
And people were passing to and fro, to and fro, to and fro. And I just felt a feeling of sadness. I was
Yeah.
on the mall alone. Nobody's here with me. Oh, people passing with their family. Oh, my family's back in Jamaica. And it's just a whole mess of things just start to, and I'm like, what is this? At first I was confused because I was saying, where did this come from? I was fine all along. And then the Lord sent an angel.
But you could imagine if the lady didn't come and you just sat with that feeling.
I can listen, ground zero.
Yeah.
I'd have
Yeah.
probably gone to ground zero because listen, and these spirits come out of nowhere. So don't think that you can plan for them and say, oh, well, when it comes, sometimes they come suddenly.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
strategy that you said to put in place, probably if I had some kind of music, I could have just put some music on and just listen to some music and just dissipate that spirit. That spirit, would have to leave. But in that moment, I felt helpless. I did. I felt like I didn't know where to turn. And God said,
And you have Christ. You could
and
imagine if
I'm
you
a
don't.
Christian, long time, yeah, Christian, very long.
So you could imagine if you didn't have Christ, if you didn't know how to pray, right? Like imagine those people
Exactly.
who just came to Christ or who don't have Christ at all and don't know what to do.
Exactly, Elizabeth. Because I just there said, Lord, what is this? And I started to talk to God. I said, God, what is this? Lord, what is this? Where did this come from? And
Yeah.
God just said, don't worry about it. I got you. Sent me an angel, you know?
And then sometimes using your words. Um, my daughter she has her own relationship with Christ, and as she tells me the different situations and encounters that she has, because she doesn't live with me, she doesn't live in the same city, she lives somewhere else, and so she's away from family very often. And what I'm realizing she's learned to do is rebuke using your words. So when things happen, she said, "Tell devil, get away,"
Ah,
and just seeing the fire in her to know that okay, she felt something and she needed to speak.
Yes. Yes.
And so sometimes, especially with grief and especially with that kind of sorrow, it almost makes your lips feel numb.
Mm.
Like you're not able to, you don't have the strength to speak. That's why
Yeah.
even playing the music, changing the atmosphere helps until you are able to bring
Yes.
words. But
That's
when you can, you need to use words to rebuke the spirit of depression,
mm.
to rebuke that spirit that wants to bring loneliness or make you feel as if you're lonely. Because I remember years ago, before I even became a Christian, um, I was at an event and it was during Christmas time, and now I'm understanding the strategies that the enemy uses to put us in these states.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was at a big event, a massive event. I posted it on social media as well during the time. I was at this event with like, let's say 300 people. And I remember posting, I'm at this event and I still feel lonely or something along the line. But the loneliness wasn't the fact that there were a lot of people around. The loneliness was the fact that I didn't have peace within.
Right.
And so I learned now to, I can't always depend on someone. We can't always reach out to someone in the time of need, but we need to know that we can reach out to God. We can
That's it.
pray, even using our tongue, our spiritual tongue, to connect. When you can't find words, to renew your strength
Yes.
by using your spiritual language to strengthen your spirit
Yeah. Yeah.
until you are able to do whatever it is that you may need to do or
Yeah.
go where you need to go. But sometimes we need to use um, our spiritual tongue to revive our spirit.
So I'm going to give you the final question, and it's kind of like a double whammy, right?
Okay.
Um, so we're saying that if the person is experiencing the loss, whether it is loss by life or some major event that is causing them to be unstable at this
Mm-hmm.
time, right? It could be relocation, different things at this time. Um, while they're doing that, and we're saying to them, okay, you can still find joy, you can still find peace, you can tap into this, you can put this in place so you're not in that slum. How can somebody not feel guilty about doing that? So we're encouraging them, okay, it's Christmas and you're going through this period, and it's okay to grieve and it's okay to that, but we also want to encourage you to do so and so. But my partner is not here, or my family's not here, or how do I celebrate and not feel bad that I'm celebrating? How does one do that?
You know, there were some scriptures that I looked at in particular for that question, and I'm going to read it. And one that I really, really found, like I think that is this is it, is Proverbs 17 and 22, and it says, "Happiness is good medicine, but sorrow is a disease."
Mm-hmm.
So being joyful, being happy, you don't need to be guilty to be happy, because you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
If you stay in the guilt, the bitterness, the sorrow, all of that, it's
Yeah.
like a disease. It spreads.
Mm.
It doesn't it doesn't stay in just a moment. It continues if you dwell there.
For weeks, for months, if you're not careful.
And if we are all believers, we're walking with Christ, we know that the Holy Spirit cannot dwell in a place that isn't joyful, that doesn't have peace, that doesn't have the fruits of the Spirit. And because He's giving us that strength, the strength that we need, because we can't give ourselves the strength, many times we can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
If we were able to do it on our own, there wouldn't be depression. And so now, not being guilty is knowing that the person that you love and who loves you wouldn't want you to have a disease. Guilt
Mm.
and sorrow is a disease to the soul,
Yeah.
to the spirit. And so when we look at it in that way, the seriousness of it, the magnitude of sorrow and grief, like a disease, then you would know that the person that you love won't want that.
Wow. That's a good one. That's a good one. So you don't need to feel bad about enjoying Christmas. You don't need to feel bad about celebrating the birth of Christ with your loved ones and those who are still around. You don't need to feel bad if you're in a different country or a different city or whatever the case may be, and you feel like I'm away from family. I shouldn't be celebrating. I shouldn't be. Oh, you should, because sadness is a disease. It's going to take you over. It is going to spread like wild weeds.
Because
So
what thought is it that brings that to you? Is that God telling you
yeah,
to
it's
not be
negative too.
joyful?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good way to end today. That's a very good way to end today. The whole matter of sadness is a disease,
It is.
and we can't give it root. We can't allow it to spread. So while you grieve and all those things, you have to remember what the Word of God says. For closing for today, because you'll be back next week, God's willing, what would you want to say to a person who is saying, I'm struggling?
And for the person that is struggling, I say find a community, find a coach, find a mentor, find somebody that is for you. Because we could say pastor, but pastor has to love and govern so many people. But you need to find somebody that you can connect to, that you're able to send a WhatsApp message to, and they can call you almost right away.
Hmm.
Find someone that can connect to you and who can pour into you. Um, I lost my father a couple of years ago, and I dwelt in grief. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that I was so offended at God and was so stricken with grief and sorrow that I dwelt in depression. But when I found my mentor, they were able to pour into me, and especially when it's Holy Spirit led, the times when I didn't even know that I needed God to send someone, He
Hmm.
did. And so finding a mentor and being intentional about it,
Yes.
intentional about knowing that you need someone. And that's why there are life coaches, people that are there with you through your life journey.
Yeah.
You may not need them all the time, but finding people, mentors, community at your church, small groups, connecting with people so that they can connect with you. And the Holy Spirit will lead them once you connect with them.
If people want to reach out to you as a life and wellness coach, where do they find you on social media?
So I on social media I am Life with Elizabeth and Coaching to Wellness. That's on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok.
All right. Thank you so much. And if you guys want to reach out to Elizabeth, feel free to reach out to us at HGG and we will connect you. Thank you for today, Elizabeth. It was
Thank
a
you
good
so much
discussion.
for the privilege.
And we'll do it again next week, God's willing.
Yes,
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
you too. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Yes, guys, let me tell you, we're talking about the whole matter of the mental state. And sometimes we don't realize how serious it is until it becomes critically dangerous. So that's it for today in the mental wellness segment. That's for today, Wednesday, mental wellness. And that's it for today on the YouTube segment of the Optimal You right here on HGG Radio. We're going to jump back over to studio and we want to pick up the discussion. If you're willing to talk with me, I'm willing to talk with you. But you can always go back, watch this clip, and let me know what you think. I'd love to know your perspective as we talk about managing our grief, loss, and the stress of the holidays um, as we draw closer to the Christmas season. God bless you. I'm Larry Life Coach and host Renae saying, see you tomorrow for financial wellness. Bye bye.